Wine was once the inspiration for painters and thinkers. I mean, think about the guys that drafted the Constitution. They loved wine.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't talk about cologne. They didn't talk about cooperage. There was something to wine. Wine has the capability to inspire people. So this is the Project M Schlüssel Riesling.
What does Schlüssel mean?
Schlüssel is German for key.
Okay.
The story behind the key is when I worked in Germany in 2004, one night, one of the other interns and I, we decided to go across the river into Urzig. So we're drinking and we're eating, and one of the waitresses tells him, hey, there's a DJ in Bernkastel tonight. You guys interested in going? So he asked me, and I'm like, well, yeah. But he says, well, I've been drinking, so I can't drive, you know, they can take away my driver's license. I'm like, oh, okay, you know. And then he says, but you're an American. They can't take away your driver's license, which at the time sounded like a good idea to me. So I said, okay, I'll drive. So we get in the car, we're crossing the bridge over into Zelting, and then we would cut up to go to Bernkastel. And as we're crossing the bridge, he starts to flip out. He's like, no, I'll drive. It'll be better if I drive. So I said, okay, so I pull over, and we switch seats, and as soon as we did, we got pulled over.
Good Lord.
So he gets carted off to jail, and I'm just sitting there in the car, so I start walking back to the house, and I get to the house, and I realize that I didn't bring my key. He had the key. So I ring the doorbell. I can hear Frau Bechtel up on the second story snoring through the window, and it's November in Germany, so it's cold.
Right.
So I wait for a couple hours to see if he gets out on bail or something, and he doesn't show up, so I go, essentially I sleep in the cellar. The next day, you know, word got out all over town. So when I would walk to work in the morning, all the little kids on their way to school would stop and ask me, haben Sie ein Schlüssel? Do you have a key? That's a fantastic story. And then all the old women in the vineyard would always, you know, like, haben Sie ein Schlüssel? So it's the name of Schlüssel. So
and that's the name of the wine.
I grew up in an agricultural community in the Midwest. I joke that I spent my summers baling hay and pitching shit.
Yeah.
And then I went off to college, and I had an aptitude for the sciences and had been accepted to do my doctorate in molecular biology at the University of Illinois, Chicago. And I woke up one morning and decided that it's not what I wanted to do. So my girlfriend and I, we moved to New Orleans, and I wanted to get a job on a stone crew or an iron crew. I wanted to build something. I wanted to work with my hands. So sort of that wasn't going to be it. Then I got a job in a restaurant, and I saw the chefs working, and I was like, they're working with their hands. They're building something. And then it was a New Year's Eve of 1999. A friend brought a 1996 Domaine Drouhin Lorraine. And I discovered that Pinot was sort of my thing. But at that moment, it became clear that Oregon Pinot, Willamette Valley Pinot, was my thing.
Yeah.
And it just got to the point where the wines people were having with dinner were more interesting to me than the dinner I just cooked for them. I went to all my favorite wineries and said, you know, you guys hiring for harvest? And they said, yeah. I said, oh, awesome. They're like, do you have any experience? I said, no. They're like, go talk to Erath. So I call up Erath. At the time, Tyson Crowley, the winemaker owner for Crowley Wines, he was the assistant winemaker. He said, yeah, you know, come on by, I'll have to meet you and bring a resume. So I go out and I find Tyson, he's on a forklift, and I hand him my resume, and he rolls it up, doesn't even look at it, rolls it up, puts it under his arm. And we talk for a few minutes, and then Rob Stewart, who was a winemaker at the time, now owns our Stewart and Company, he comes walking by, and Tyson says, Rob, this guy wants a harvest job. So Rob looks at me and he says, how's your back? I said, it's fine. He says, you know how to work a shovel? I said, yeah. He's like, yeah, go ahead and hire him. So that was it. So much of what Project M is about is sort of, you know, below the surface, things with meaning. So we didn't want just a pretty label. We wanted labels that somehow suggested aspects of the brand or our philosophy and things like that. We wanted motion. We wanted things to reflect movement. Wine is four-dimensional. It moves. At least it should. This is the Sand series. And this label here on the Personified Pinot Noir is the one that I first saw and said, that's the label. It's called processing. It's computer generated. So she creates a series of, the artist that is, creates a series of mathematical probabilities and limits. And then they're randomly populated within that. So the labels, like wine, will never be repeated. Even if you entered the same coordinates, the same probabilities, the label would be different.
So what are we drinking here?
So this is the 2017 Project M Clara. For me, I wanted to make the great summer wine. So we talked about place with the Riesling, and we could talk about place with the Pinot Noir, but when we talk about the Rosé, it's completely engineered.
Okay.
There's an objective, and it has to be infinitely drinkable. It has to refresh itself. So it's not something you have to go somewhere to get something else to clear the palate. It clears the palate itself.
Right.
And it has to be relatively low in alcohol so that it can be consumed copiously without major impairment.
Mass quantities of rosé.
So we try to make it easy. It smells, to me, is absolutely fascinating. The way, typically we think of it as being very one or two dimensional.
It's my favorite way to experience a glass of wine.
Yeah, mine too.
By far. To me, it's less about, flavor maybe is the least important.
Yeah.
I love smell and I love mouthfeel. How the structure of a wine progresses and combats and then complements.
If we were to line up 100 Pinot Noirs, they would all smell like cherries and spice and then we put them in our mouths. They all taste more or less the same. If you read 100 tasting notes without a score, and it's all Pinot Noir, they will all taste and smell the same. So why is one of them great and one of them sucks? Structure, mouthfeel. We have a tremendous vocabulary for flavors and aromas like that.
Yep.
But how many textural words do we have at our disposal?
That's a good point.
5, 6.
Yeah.
Oh, it's velvety. It's lush. It's rich. And they're not very descriptive.
Right.
And I mentioned earlier that wine is four-dimensional. If you put your hand on something, you don't know what that something feels like until you move your hand back and forth. Texture is a function of movement, which is a function of time. So I talk about that. My business partner and life partner is Meg Hirsch Murray. There wouldn't be a Project M were it not for Meg. My wine career probably wouldn't have taken the trajectory that it took if it weren't for Meg. She always pushed me to sort of be better at what I do and always encouraged me to take next steps. The M is for Murray. If you look at the logo, it's two M's that have symmetric pieces that come together. So the M has two parts, and without one of those parts, we wouldn't have an M. We wouldn't have Project M.
Jerry, I really want to thank you for having me out.
Oh, thanks. Anytime,
super, super cool to hear you talk about your guys' operation. And there's very few people I've heard talk with such passion about their business, about their craft. And that passion really shows through in the finished product. Absolutely love tasting your wines, hearing a lot about the story, and can only imagine these guys did too. Can you share with them one more time if they want to taste your wines, how they go about doing that? Where do they get in contact with you?
The absolute best place is projectmwines.com.
Okay. We'll link that up there.
That's projectmwines.com. Project M is a journey with no destination, so you can be a part of it. And projectmwines.com.
Love that.
We'll get you there.
I'm excited to be a part of the journey too. I really appreciate it, man. Cheers.
Thank you, man.